Mora Adeyemi stepped off the dusty bus into the blistering afternoon sun of Okife, a small town tucked between rolling hills and thick tropical forest in southwestern Nigeria. The air was heavy with the scent of burnt kola nuts and freshly harvested cassava. Her eyes scanned the familiar yet changed streets. Bright fabrics fluttered from market stalls, children darted between rusted cars, and elders gathered under the shade of ancient Iroko trees. But the peace of Okife was deceptive. It had been 10 years since Mora fled this town, leaving behind a past no one dared to speak of. The fire, the screams, the disappearance of her younger brother, Tand. Back then, Mora was the last person anyone suspected of being involved, but whispers in hushed tones followed her out of town like shadows. Now, with her mother's sudden death and a mysterious letter left among her belongings, Mora was compelled to return. The letter had only 3 words, scrawled in her mother's shaky handwriting: "Find the truth." At the market, Mora spotted Elias Okoro, her childhood friend, now a tall man with a lean frame, his eyes carrying both warmth and warning. "Mora, you shouldn't be here," he said in a low voice as he guided her away from the bustling crowd. "Okife isn't the same." "Then what happened?" Mora asked, voice tight. "Why does it feel like everyone is hiding something?" Elias glanced around before answering. "The factory, the one on the outskirts, by the forest. They say it's cursed. Strange things happen there. And now, with Lila gone, people are scared. The elders warn against going near." Mora remembered the factory. Once a thriving textile mill, it had shut down years ago after a suspicious fire. Her father had worked there. That night, as Mora lay awake in the small guest room of her late mother's house, the shadows outside whispered secrets. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number: "Leave Okife or suffer the same fate." Mora clenched her fist. She wasn't running this time. The following morning, Mora met Elias near the old market square. His usual calm was replaced by tension. "I've been watching the factory," he said quietly. "People go missing, strange lights at night. They say the place is no longer abandoned." Mora nodded. "I need to see it for myself." Together, they rode motorbikes through winding dirt roads lined with palm trees until the factory came into view, its tall, rusted gates half open, shadows lurking inside. The air smelled of chemicals and decay. Inside, the walls were covered in faded propaganda posters for a long-forgotten government initiative. The silence was broken by a faint hum coming from underground. Mora's heart pounded as they found a hidden staircase leading below. The basement was a labyrinth of cold steel corridors and glass rooms filled with strange machines. Paper scattered on a table revealed something chilling: experiments aimed at controlling memories, funded by a shadowy corporation called Zenith Global, tied to influential families in Okife. "This is why the town forgot," Elias whispered. "They erased the truth, including what happened to Ton and Lila." Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. Sheriff Balogun appeared, his usual stern expression twisted with anger. "You shouldn't have come here, Mora," he growled. "Some truths are dangerous." Before he could act, a loud crash echoed from above. The factory's roof was collapsing, trapping them inside. In the chaos, Mora saw Sheriff Balogun pull out a hidden gun. Elias stepped between them, pleading, "You don't have to do this." The sheriff hesitated, then lowered the weapon. "You don't understand what's at stake. This corporation will destroy anyone who gets in their way." With the building trembling, Mora and Elias made a desperate escape through a narrow tunnel. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky with blood-red hues. Mora's resolve hardened. The people of Okife were caught in a web of lies and power, and now she held the key to unraveling it. But who could she trust? Night had fully swallowed Okife, but Mora's mind raced with questions. The factory fire was no accident, it was a cover-up. She knew the town's influential families had more to hide than anyone dared say aloud. Elias and Mora met in the quiet courtyard of her mother's old compound. "I've been digging into Zenith Global," Elias said. "They own half the town now. The factory was their lab, where they experimented with memory manipulation to erase inconvenient truths and control people. Mora's breath caught. My family must have found out. That's why Ton disappeared. And Lila. Suddenly, Mora's phone buzzed. A message, meet me at the market by midnight. Come alone. No sender, curiosity and dread twisted inside her. Against Eliza's warnings, Mora went. At the deserted market square, a shadow emerged, Sheriff Baligan. You want answers? He said, voice low. I was trying to protect you. He revealed that years ago, the sheriff's own sister had been caught in Zenith's experiments and that the corporation's grip on Okife was suffocating. I tried to stop them, he confessed, but I'm trapped in their game too. Before Mora could respond, headlights swept into the square, men in black suits, agents of Zenith. They tracked her. A tense chase through the narrow alleys ensued, but with Elias's help, Mora escaped to an old radio station where she broadcasted everything she knew to the world, exposing Zenith's horrors and the town's forgotten pain. As dawn broke over Okife, Mora stood beneath the Iroko tree, feeling the weight of her ancestors' secrets lift. She had returned to find the truth, and in doing so, had freed a town trapped in shadows. But deep in the forest, a figure watched, already plotting the next move. The sunrise over Okife painted the town in gold, but it couldn't cleanse the dark truths now exposed. The radio broadcast had shaken the community. Zenith Global's laboratories were real, their experiments on memory control documented and undeniable. Overnight, Okife went from a quiet town to the center of a storm, but it wasn't over. That morning, Mora sat under the Iroko tree with Elias, their eyes fixed on the horizon. The broadcast had drawn attention, international journalists, government agents, and even masked vigilantes claiming to rescue the stolen mines, yet one question haunted Mora more than any other: where was Lila? Later that day, while cleaning out her mother's old storeroom, Mora found a locked trunk hidden behind woven mats. Inside, a dusty camera, undeveloped film rolls, and a notebook titled Project Flame. Her mother had documented everything: dates, names, codes, and maps. One map pointed to a secluded facility deep in the Obololu forest. According to the final entry, her mother believed Lila had been moved there just days before the factory explosion. I think she's still alive, Mora whispered, gripping the pages. Mora, Elias, and Sheriff Baligan, now reinstated after his bravery, ventured into the Obololu forest. The trees stood like silent witnesses, their branches tangled like secrets. Deep inside, they discovered a facility camouflaged under an abandoned cocoa plantation. Inside were rows of small, sterile chambers. Flickering lights revealed faces, some blank, some smiling vacantly. Subjects of Zenith's experiments. And then, in Chamber 7A laid Lila. Pale. Eyes open. Breathing, but trapped in an artificial loop of memory. She's stuck reliving the same moment, said Elias, voice shaking. They didn't just erase memories. They replaced them. But Mora's voice cut through. She spoke to her sister in Yoruba, calling out childhood rhymes, songs only they knew. Lila blinked. Once. Twice. Then whispered, Mora. They got her out. The government raided the site hours later. Zenith Global's executives were arrested, including Dr. Halima Okonkwo, the real architect of the mind experiments. She'd once been a researcher for the military and saw Okife as the perfect place to test silence, but one man escaped, Mr. Karim, the public face of Zenith in Nigeria. He vanished without a trace. In the months that followed, Okife transformed. Truths came to light. Families reunited. The town began to heal, but not forget. Mora opened the Flame Center, a community space to document memory, teach resistance to manipulation, and preserve stories once buried. As for Lila, her recovery was slow. Sometimes she would stare into space, haunted by fragments of false lives. But with Mora by her side, she was finding her way back. One evening, as Mora locked up the center, a man handed her a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo, a girl with identical features to Lila, but younger, in a school uniform, standing beside a Zenith logo on the back. She's not the only one. Mora looked up, but the messenger was gone. The fire had been doused. But beneath the silence, new embers glowed. The screams shattered the stillness of dawn. In the heart of Okife, inside the flame center, a nurse stumbled backward, her clipboard crashing to the tiled floor. Behind her, Lila writhed in the bed, her eyes blank, mouth open in a soundless cry. But it wasn't the seizure that made the nurse scream, it was the voice that followed, not English. Not Yoruba, but Russian.
Ты не моя сестра. You're not my sister.
By afternoon, whispers spread across Okife like harmattan dust. Is it really her? Was Lila ever in the factory? Did Mora save the wrong girl? Elias confronted Mora outside the town's shrine. Mora. Lila's blood war came in. No match. Not even a cousin. Mora stared ahead, unmoving. She knows things, personal things, she said. Our games, our mothers humming. They could have implanted those memories, Elias said gently. They didn't just erase minds. They rebuilt them. What if she's manufactured? Mora remembered the note, she's not the only one, and the photo, the girl in the Zenith uniform, identical to Lila but younger. A knock at her door that night shattered her thoughts. Sheriff Baligan stood there with hollow eyes. We found another girl. In an abandoned church 10 kilometers from Okife, underground beneath the pulpit, another chamber. Inside, sedated and pale, lay a second Lila. This one had a scar under her chin, just like the real Lila had from falling off a mango tree at age 7. Mora's knees gave out, twins. Elias asked. Sheriff Baligan shook his head slowly. No. Clones. Documents recovered from Zenith Global's private server revealed a program, Project Gemini, human duplication for elite buyers and international espionage, the Lila they rescued. A living memory vessel, implanted with select traits, designed to respond to Mora's presence, but something unexpected had happened. She'd started remembering on her own. Unscripted. While the real Lila was transferred to Lagos for deprogramming, the clone, L, as the files called her, became unpredictable. She began drawing strange symbols, whispering names of people in power Mora had never heard of. Foreign ministers. Oil executives. Governors. One night, Elias found her walking barefoot in the bush, speaking into a stone as if it were a phone. We triggered something, he said. She wasn't just a memory test. She was a sleeper. Mora knew they had to act fast. 2 days later, the flame center exploded, no injuries, because Elias had pulled the fire alarm minutes before. But inside the ruins, they found a trigger device planted under L's bed, fingerprint scan, Mr. Karim. The ghost from Zenith Global. He had returned. Mora stared into the flames. This isn't over, she said quietly, and it wasn't. L, now held in a hidden safe house, began reciting coordinates. Locations across Nigeria. Every place matched with a former Zenith holding. She knew them all, though she had never been to any of them. She's the map, Sheriff Baligan said grimly. To everything they tried to bury. And they weren't the only ones watching. The final revelation came from an encrypted hard drive found inside the church. There were 3 girls made from Lila's DNA, one for memory, one for behavior, and one for replacement. Mora's hands trembled as the screen displayed a girl in a hijab, seated across from a government official in Abuja. She had Lila's eyes. She was speaking about peace initiatives. She was being introduced as Ambassador Lila Ode Williams. The real Lila had been replaced in plain sight. The clone with false memories was a decoy. The real one, brainwashed, had become a symbol of the new regime. Mora felt the ground shift beneath her. Elias leaned in, whispering, they didn't want to silence the past. They wanted to rewrite the future. The mind games are far from being over. Watch out for part 2.